Hi everyone, thank you for joining us. I'm with Malcolm Wood today, who is an adventure athlete, explorer, and entrepreneur, best known in Asia for his restaurant group, Maximal Concepts. Malcolm, thank you for allowing us to join you today.
Thank you for having us.
Great. So as an explorer, someone who does these really adventurous and ultimately dangerous activities, I have to ask, what got you interested in this field? What was your inspiration?
It's quite interesting. By the age of 18, I'd lived in 12 different countries, so I'd spent a lot of my sort of early childhood moving around with my family, sort of kind of in exploration mode, always having to discover new things. And the two things that my dad got me into at an early age was skiing, and he actually put me on skis at the age of 2. And the other thing that he loved doing was taking long sailing trips. And so we'd take sort of little sailing boats, 40 to 45 foot sailing boats, and we'd go on a month-long adventure. And so I had that mind frame from an early age, and I think I just kind of took the mountain and the skiing aspect with the mentality of exploration of sailing and sort of combined the two together.
So you're a world traveler essentially from a very young age.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah. That's fantastic. So out of all the different explorations and adventures you've undergone thus far, what would you say is either your proudest, your hardest achievement to date?
I'd have to say we're shooting a documentary right now. It's an environmental documentary called Last Glaciers, and we recently did a expedition to the Cordillera Blanca region in Peru, and we climbed a mountain to try to tandem fly off it, and it'd never been tandem flown off before. The previous attempt actually didn't work out at all. And when we summited the mountain, it was too windy, and it was close to 6,000 meters, and we had to come back down, sleep at base camp. We'd ran out of food, and the decision was to end the expedition there and have not achieved the summit, or to try to reclimb it without food and get back up and fly off the summit. And so we decided to do the latter. It was extremely hard, but that's got to be probably my proudest moment in expeditions.
Understandably. And so when you decide you want to tandem off something that's never been done before, how do you train for that? What's involved in doing the unexpected?
I do a lot of training in Hong Kong, endurance sports, endurance swimming, endurance running, but you can't really prepare mentally for a challenge like that. It was unexpected. We weren't expecting to climb the mountain twice. When we came down to the base camp, we weren't expecting to have run out of food. I'm fairly new to tandem paragliding, and so to be taking off at altitude, which I'd never done before, and to take a passenger and fly him safely off the summit, all of those things combined made it truly a seriously hard
a little bit of pressure.
Moment. Yeah, a lot of pressure for sure.
Wow. And with all your trips, are there a certain amount of tools or certain objects, whether it's, in our case we always talk about watches, or other devices that you use that you always have to have with you, you cannot really succeed without?
Yeah, I mean, I use watches for sure in everything I do. I come from an entrepreneurial background. The reasons I enjoy expeditions is it's a lot of planning. It's just as mental as it is physical. So time is always crucial to everything that I'm doing, and it's about planning out the organization, the time of training, the preparation, all of that sort of stuff comes together. Just on those expeditions, there's a bunch of things that you have to use to keep yourself alive, and that comes down to the safety equipment and the ropes and all of those sort of things. But without being too forward about it, I would say time is probably the most crucial thing.
Wow. Looking at the watches you have on the table here, I see some diver watches, pilot watches, arguably all sports watches, of course. And the one that caught my eye that's, I would think to be the less sporty, less durable, is the Vacheron Constantin, which I think, even though this is an overseas model, looks more like a dress piece. But in fact, you were sponsored by Vacheron at some of your expeditions, is that correct?
Yeah, and I think, Vacheron chose me to help launch their overseas collection in Asia. I think given what I do, which is a lot of people know me for my restaurant group and sort of my entrepreneurial stuff that I do, as well as the sports stuff. The Overseas collection was a watch that you could change the strap, you could move to the rubber strap, you could move to the leather strap, depending on what you were doing, where you were in the world. They have different models, one that keeps the time zones, and one that keeps the chronograph that you can time, and it's beautifully made. So the watch definitely suited kind of my lifestyle, and it was a really good match. So a great partnership.
And you actually wore the watch during your expeditions while you were climbing, right?
I wore the watch. I was extremely nervous. I took it up 3 mountains with me. But it's such a beautiful watch that I was nervous about damaging it just because I didn't want to. But yeah, I used the rubber strap, super durable, super easy to use and take off and put on, and extremely practical. And then when we actually did the event, I used the same piece that I took up the summits and switched it out with the evening leather watch strap. So yeah, it was.
So it lives up to its name of durable, no issues, reliable.
No issues at all.
Oh, that's great. So you're in nature so often. I imagine you have so many concerns regarding sustainability and reusing products. Being a more sustainable and conservative lifestyle with regards to the environment. Do you choose your watches based around this? Because I see some correlations here with brands that do these kind of programs. Is that intentional for you?
Yeah, everything that we do, whether it's the film production stuff, whether it's the work that we do for the UN, is based all around environmental issues and driving awareness. So it's really nice to work with companies or to support companies that are making the change right now to become sustainable. And a lot of these brands here have been making those initiatives. IWC has been the first watch company that has done a full audit of how to become sustainable in the near future. And so it's really nice to support them. The other common theme that I like between all of these watches is, my foundation of adventure comes from flying in the ocean. And so when I'm picking a watch, I'm looking at sort of diving watches that sort of remind me of my childhood and my diving and my sailing days. And since I'm a paragliding pilot, an alpinist, the other types of watches I like are the aviation types of watches. And so that's kind of the theme you're seeing here.
I guess that brings us to the next piece, which is probably the most quintessential pilot's watch on the market and one of the most famous pieces, the IWC Big Pilot. And IWC, as you mentioned, did their first sustainability report, which was an industry first, looking at ways to use renewable energy in the production of their watches. So I think it's super important, a big step forward. And another watch, I think, when you're in the action of paragliding, if you're flying, easy to operate, easy to read. It's just kind of a no-nonsense type of watch.
Yeah, I mean, when you're flying and you're paragliding, if you have a lapse of concentration, if you take your hands off the brake, you could cost you your life. And so when you glance down at your instruments, you check the time, you have a moment. So it's even more important in paragliding aviation than it is in flying aviation, and that's why that watch style really appeals to me.
Just legibility.
Yeah. Just super easy to take the information off the watch face when you need it.
Right. Very good. Right, so moving on from the aviation to the diving realm, I see your Blancpain 50 Fathoms hardcore diver's watch. I know you're really interested in ocean conservation, sustainability, and you're also a UN ambassador. Can you just tell us a little bit about your work there in those programs?
Yeah, so I mean, just to come back to the watch, I really like the watch because of the name, 50 Fathoms. It sort of reminds you of childhood stories of the deep ocean, and I grew up, as I said earlier, just being inspired by travel and diving, and so that piece to me just sort of sparks that childhood imagination. The work that we do with Plastic Oceans is really centered around ocean conservation, and we were one of the first groups in Hong Kong to eliminate single-use plastic in the front of house, and we've kind of been pushing that through the documentary that we made at Plastic Ocean. We also represent the UN environment in Asia, pushing sort of conservational messages about climate change and conservation, waste management, and so that kind of just all ties into what we're passionate as a group.
I think that's the perfect brand, Blancpain, is to go along with that ideal, because they have their Ocean Commitment program where with some of the watches that you purchase, they also donate the proceeds to these exact causes, which is fantastic.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, I'm always looking when I do make a purchase that it's not just an item because I like it. There's a reason behind it. There's a foundation that they're supporting. They're looking at sustainable materials in their watch straps or that sort of stuff. And I think the consumer is changing and they want that more from their products. And if you're going to go and spend that sort of money on a product, you want to see that, you know, there's some thought process being put behind that, and that's why I do like that product.
No, I think you're absolutely right. It's great. So for our regular viewers, I think many of you will notice this is actually our first video that we've done outside of our Watchbox Collectors Lounge, and to give all of our viewers in America a glimpse of really my favorite restaurant spot in Hong Kong, we decided to come to one of the flagship restaurants of the Maximal Group, which is Mott 32, right in the center of Hong Kong. Fortunately for you all back home, they've just opened in Las Vegas, in the Palazzo Casino.
Palazzo, yes, exactly.
It's great news. So for all of you back in the States, definitely go visit. It's incredible. So I see a wide array of different dishes here. Can you explain to me what you've chosen to show our viewers?
So yeah, I chose a selection of dishes just to kind of show off the things that we do. We're well known for our dim sum. These dishes are the dishes that I always order. It's extremely hard when you're in conservation to eat sustainably, and we've spent a lot of time and effort sourcing our ingredients from sustainable sources. So this is actually a Chinese grouper wok fried dish, but it's using giant farmed grouper, which comes from a local aquaponic farm, and they use giant grouper because the fish grows at a faster speed, and it actually is one of the perfect fishes for farming. We source our lobster. This is a lobster mapu tofu, one of my favorites. Bowl of rice. It's right balance of spices and savory flavors. The lobster is actually sourced from South Australia, from a regulated market, and so we're not using ingredients from countries where we know that there's issues with sort of the fishing practices and the regulations. And I'm eating a lot of vegetables these days, especially when I'm training. And I love a good fried rice. Fried rice is actually one of the most technical things to pull off properly in a kitchen, even though it's the most simple on a Chinese menu. Right.
I think it's really fantastic that you're adopting sustainable methods even in your restaurant business. Because I imagine that's not a cheap or easy thing to do. And is that something you're doing in all of your restaurants or just Mott at this time?
No, we do it in all of our restaurants. We've just opened another restaurant up called John Anthony. It's also a Chinese restaurant, Cantonese focused, and we took sustainability to the next level with that restaurant, where we looked at the design. We used recycled material, recycled flooring, terracotta, recycled wood, and so try to build the restaurant from the ground up with that sort of sustainability mindset.
That's great. It smells really amazing. I feel bad you all can't smell this. It's great. So one last watch I wanted to talk about, because this is something I've never seen. I actually don't know what this watch is. So maybe, Malcolm, you could tell me about this, which I think is a diving piece, but tell me the story where you got this. What is it?
So this is a super unique watch. It's actually made from a guy called Max van Brugger. He's actually a close friend of mine. He's a master watchmaker, and he's been a master watchmaker for some of the top luxury watchmakers in the world. He has his own company now called Van Brugger. This is a unique piece. It's called Helium 2. It's got a helium escape valve on the side of the watch, and again, it's to do with my obsession with the ocean and diving. He hand makes each piece himself as a master watchmaker, and I think it's still really unique. to find those elements when you're looking at sort of high quality luxury
Right.
watches. His company Van Brooker has some amazing timepieces, but this particular watch is one of his more sporty watches. Unfortunately, not available to buy currently.
It's a shame. You know, we're, I think, a bit desensitized at Watchbox because we see all kinds of watches every day. So to see something I've never seen before, it's genuinely exciting. This is fantastic. The quality feels really, really solid.
Yeah.
Was this made for you, or you just were lucky enough to find it?
He actually made it for the port divers of London, and it's a division of the sort of the London. I don't know whether it's the military or whatever, but they're a special division that do sort of the rescue operations and things like that. And yeah, he made a series of these watches specifically for those guys. I would love to see him retail these watches in the future
That
because
could be
they're
very
beautiful.
successful. Yeah. So you have some very diverse pieces here. Out of all the watches you have, what was your first piece in your collection? What was the one that started it all for you?
So actually, having been given a bunch of really nice watches recently, the first one was a Panerai, and I hadn't bought myself a watch at that stage of my life. My mom actually gave me this, and she knew that I love diving, and I like it. It's simple, it's understated, and it's the one that I wear the most at the moment.
All-time classic dive watch for.
Yeah.
I mean, perfectly fitting for someone like yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fantastic. I think you're tying Watchbox into the sustainability, conversation. Bringing new life into pre-owned watches, repurposing old pieces that people may have left in their drawers, forgotten about, and when you can bring these watches back to life, instead of putting somebody into a brand new watch, similar to these recycled materials that you advocate for, we're doing the same thing here. And I think it just ties in so handsomely with your engagements.
Yeah, I think what you guys are doing is great. As you said, if you can repurpose something, you're doing something better for the environment. And if you do like watches and you want to grow your collection, it's the perfect way to do it. So yeah, definitely.
Great. Malcolm, I want to thank you so much for allowing us in your truly beautiful restaurant. It's really a pleasure for us to be here. And for all of our fans who are going to visit the Watchbox Lounge in Central, please stop by Mott 32. It's right across the street. You won't regret it. I think now, most importantly, let's enjoy.
Yeah, dig
Great.
in.
Thank you.